As entrepreneurs, we want to make a huge impact, and many of us are. And as we're doing all our transactions, we're getting tons and tons of data. What do we do with it? I got to tell you, I met a fellow entrepreneur who is an amazing individual, is a chief marketing officer at his company, and they review and have access in helping their clients to over $2 billion of media spend. And they are one of the few companies, there's a lot of people talking about data analytics. I know I've talked to a lot of consultants that are talking about it. Michael's actually doing it. Michael Loban is just an amazing individual. I met him at Genius Network, and I asked him to come because he really works with companies, the Fortune 500, 50, and so on. But I asked him to come to us because each and every one of us, as we build this data, there are so many lessons to be learned if only we know how. You will know how. Stay tuned for this. I'm John Bowen. I am the founder of AES.com, AESNation.com, and I am looking forward to this conversation with Michael as well. Unbelievable insights. Stay tuned.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Michael, I am so excited to have you here. We're sitting about a table apart at Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind group, and you're a relatively quiet guy. I never got hardly that much a chance to talk with you, but you were surrounded by people because this is one of our favorite subjects, data analytics, and really understanding it, because most of us don't. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Absolutely. Thrilled to be here.
Well, Michael, before we go, I always like to get the background of how people got to where they are. Why don't you share with us a little bit? One, obviously, you've got an accent, so you're from somewhere else than the States, and I am very observant. And then the second thing is, how did you get into data analytics? Because it's only been it's not a very mature business, as I think you would agree too. I hear more and more people, I talked about in the opening, talking about data analytics, and I went to one conference and I feel like I know nothing at all, and I knew more than most of them that were speaking. And it's such a brave new frontier that's so valuable. How'd you get there?
Sure. So to answer your first question, where my accent comes from, I grew up, actually I was born in Soviet Union. Then when I was fairly young, the area where I lived became Ukraine, became an independent nation. And then my family immigrated from Ukraine to United States. And I've lived in the United States since I was 16, but it seems like that although I've lived in the country for now, 17 years, accent proved to be way too strong. And so I have not been able to get kind of a flawless English, if you will. So
Michael, let me just stop you for a second too, because one of the things I find a disproportionate amount of data research people are Russian, come from with a Russian background. Is there, but it's not that you went to a Russian university. I think you said 16 you came over. Is there why is that? Are we seeing that?
Yeah. So I would say in that case, I'm a complete anomaly. I don't have a mathematics background. People that are close to me actually make fun that anyone allows me close to their analytics or data. So I'm not, if you will, a mathematics statistical wizard, as many of my colleagues who are absolutely amazing are running statistical models, interpreting data. But I think in many ways, this is what allows me to be good at my job, is because I see analytics more as a means to an end, and I keep my eye always on what business is trying to accomplish and how they simply use analytics to get to that point. A lot of times we see that people that understand analytics, they very much see it, look how powerful it is what we have, and they are not really very good at selling it, right? And we often notice that in companies, knowing or having access to data is not enough. Once you understand data, you still have to sell it. You still have to be able to interpret it and really do a great job at explaining your message to the executives, to the management team. And I think this is where really my area of strength is. As far as why many people that are very strong in mathematics or data or statistics come from Russia, Ukraine, I think those countries used to have very strong schools that would focus on those areas. And probably in many ways, students that excelled, they were maybe given opportunities to attend international universities or universities in other countries, and so they left. So I'm not able to, I don't have the data.
Yeah, it exists somewhere probably. But Michael, tell me how then you're to me it sounds like you're a translator of this, which is more valuable because you've talked to and I've talked with many data scientists, and it's sometimes hard to communicate effectively so that I can use their findings in business. And how did you get to where you're chief marketing officer of the firm?
Sure. So the title does not always do justice, if you will, to what I do. A lot of my work is around meeting with prospective clients, meeting with existing clients, and painting that picture, right, of what analytics can do for their business. How I started in this field, well, as we were building the company, we quickly realized that we do not want to be just another marketing agency. We want to help organizations understand how they grow their customer base, how do they increase frequency of purchases, how do they increase the average value of purchases, how do they decide if their marketing was successful or not successful. So we wanted to focus on the actual measurement and understanding of what exactly happens before a conversion, before a transaction happens, and how do we get more customers to make, let's say, buying decisions. So how do we help organizations properly tell and share their story? So that was our focus. We found that there are way too many organizations that do an amazing job at doing actual marketing, storytelling, branding, SEO, whatever it is. But there was a massive opportunity at helping organizations measure what they do. And so my job, whether I'm speaking at a conference, I'm speaking with the group of executives, or with the group of clients or prospects, it really is painting the picture of what data can be doing and how it can be working, and promoting analytics. It seems like everyone should be doing data analysis. It seems like everyone should be doing business intelligence with data, but it's much easier said than done. Yes, it's popular. Yes, every organization has a line item where say, we're going to be more data driven. We're going to spend that much money on analytics, but we are yet to see a lot of organizations are doing it well.
Well, let's talk about, Michael, how do we do it effectively? Because one of the challenges is we are getting a lot of data. In today's world, there's even the smallest businesses are getting a lot of data transactions, whether they're an online or whether they're a brick and mortars. And we're getting a flood of data, and most of us. It's so easy to get overwhelmed. Are we collecting the right data? How do we analyze it? How do we make smart decisions where, particularly as we're advertising online, this can be for many people the difference between, an exponential return on investment to a failure.
I would even say further, when you say failure, going out of business. Look at how many organizations that seems like been in the business for decades are going out of business or not being successful, right? So Past success, past marketing success does not really indicate that you will be successful in the future, just because of how easy right now it is for new companies to enter the marketplace. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So to answer your question, how do we do this well? Let's actually take a step back from analytics, and let's imagine that it's January 1st, right? The day after New Year, and we have a list of new resolutions, and one of the items is, you know what, I want to get in shape. Right? This is my year of where I am really going to get.
I've had that more than once.
To the next level, many of us, right? Regardless of what the resolution is. And so January 1st, you show up at the gym, many people obviously are there. And you look at all of that equipment, and you are trying to figure out, do I start with squats? Do I start with bench press? Do I go running? If I go running, do I run for 20 minutes, normal pace, or do I run for 5 minutes extra fast? And there are so many different options, and you're a little bit overwhelmed, but you're yet excited, and you do this, and this, and you stay in the gym for 2 hours because you're motivated, right? Next day, you don't feel very well, but you're still quite there in terms of motivation. You go back to the gym and you do it again. Maybe day 3, you still do it, and then kind of day 4, day 5, you feel, oh shit, I'm tired, this is too much, maybe I need to take a few days off, and all of a sudden we realize it's end of January, it's February, and we haven't been to the gym in quite some time. So analytics in many ways follows the same pattern, right? There's so much data, right? Just as much as equipment that you have in the gym times 100. And we believe that there is value in it, but we are overwhelmed because of how much of it there is. So what I call this is, instead of going to the gym or going to the data once or twice and becoming hopefully successful, is we need to develop analytical fitness. It's not just how do we win with analytics, as what are the daily rituals or practices that we need to adopt that will allow us to start using analytics better on daily basis. And sometimes it can be as simple as asking yourself, at what touch points do I interact with my customers? How do I collect data about those touch points? How's my data compared today versus yesterday versus the same day last week, last month? What are the trends week over week? Why are there changes? Why do I see that less people are buying, or maybe more people are buying? Or what are the products that people are buying together? Right? And so on a daily basis, you start answering those questions. And that's a lot more important than kind of this big bang approach where let's invest a lot of money, build a data lake, hire 10 people. Yes, you have the right resources, but you're still clueless in terms of how to do them. So the way I recommend looking at it is in terms of 6 Ps. So your first P is the purpose, right? We need to define why do we actually need all this analytics, because you can make an argument that, let's say, $10,000 that you want to spend analytics, just spend it on SEO, spend it on pay-per-click, and then just get more people, right? Analytics by itself is not going to get you far, right? It's the analysis and putting that information into action is what's going to get results. So you have the Ps. The next 3 Ps is the actual how the change happens, right? You have your platforms or tools that you're going to use. You have people or who's going to be responsible for that, and you have processes, right? So those are the 3 things that are necessary to make any type of change within the business. And the last 2 P's is what you can expect as a result. It's the payoff, right? The amount of money that you can make as a result of using analytics, and its pace. And pace is a very important one and often overlooked. Pace is using analytics. How quickly can you put your data into action? Because if let's say you're selling the products today, and then you get access to your data and you analyze it 60 days later, well, think about it. It took you 60 days to analyze information, and then it's probably going to take you another 30 days to put your analysis into action, 90 days. You can't wait that long, right? So the question is almost on daily basis, how can we analyze information? How can we put and apply this information that same day, that same week, that same month? And that's what's important. So what differentiates companies that do analytics well is they have these processes, they have these rituals of where they do this on a daily basis. And the organizations that tend to be not successful are the ones that kind of decide, well, over the next year, we're going to become analytics driven. They end up investing a lot of money in this, but they don't have the processes to do it the right way. They don't have that fitness.
So, Michael, I would say I'm one of those guys. I've spent some money, hired some data scientists along the way, got a lot of data, and have made some mistakes. Where I really and found some things out, 6 months later when the world changed.
Yep.
Type thing. So what I'd like to do, if you're okay with this, is why don't we just go through and think of small, mid-sized companies, not the Fortune 50, because they're already embarking. They may be doing it wrong, and they can use you for that to correct that. But let's go through each of the six, if that's okay, and really, in a small, mid-size entrepreneurial business. How do they do that? I mean, let's start with purpose. Start at the top. When you're talking about purpose, you gave a little bit, but give me kind of where you would see, and really Genius Network would be a good sampling. Where we were together, there were like 60 fellow entrepreneurs. Some nice businesses, some emerging, some that are really successful. What would be their purpose if you were helping coach them through the 6-step process?
Sure. Well, your purpose has to do with your customer, right? So when we talk about analytics, it's all customer data, right? So think about your customer and think about the types of experience that customer has with your business online, right? Do they buy products on your website? Do they buy products on your mobile application? Is it easy for them to go through that process, right? So the purpose might be something as simple as when people want to buy this type of product, whatever product you sell, right? How can I use my analytics to understand their experience and make their experience as flawless, as easy as possible, right? Don't begin with, I want to use analytics to lower the cost of acquisition. That's BS, right? You are thinking too much about yourself. You need to think about your customer, right? Think about the organizations that you love buying online, right? Often Amazon comes to mind, Bonobos, which is a much smaller company, often comes to mind, and many other organizations. So what is about that experience that you enjoy, right? They tell their story well, the checkout process tends to be flawless. It seems like they've thought through how to present their products, right? So a good purpose for this type of endeavor or project can be is how do I understand what my customers want from the online experience? And how do I develop a process where it is easy for them to engage with me, engage with my brand online? How can I use that data not just to understand it, but to improve it along the way?
That's great. That's really helpful. Getting that, thinking of it as that experience, and really, that's what differentiates us. And as you said, Amazon, and I can think of a whole bunch of companies that just, they make it easy to do business, and I love doing it with them. It's frictionless or very close to that.
And we often think that, I'm not able to compete with large organizations, or I'm not able to offer products that are cheaper than somebody else. I have enough data to tell you it's not always about the cost of the product. People, and I'll use myself as an example, right? A lot of times I will pay more for the product just because on one website, the shopping experience is just that much more pleasant, right? On one site, it seems like I know the brand, I like them, I read their blog, I have that type of connection with them. Right? And so I will overpay a certain amount just because it seems like they get me, right? They understand. Where others, it seems like the product is cheaper, but the whole experience, I just do not want to be spending money with that.
Well, and one, I bought something for my wife, and it was, one of the I bought from, I went back to Amazon. It was actually fairly significantly more, but I knew I could return it if she didn't like it. And it's that overall experience. I mean, I'm going to argue that smaller businesses, we can make our experiences much better without, usually we've got smaller markets that we're working with niche, higher price, and it's easier to do. But let's go to the second thing, platform. And what are we talking about here, Michael?
Yeah. So platform is your technologies, right? And I believe I have a blog, a column, on Forbes.com, and then one of them I talked about the technology stack. So there's more information on this on platforms. But basically, these are the tools that you need to better measure the experience that your customers have, whether finding your product online or engaging with your organization on a website, on a mobile application, Facebook, whatever that is. And I would say that there are a few that are absolutely necessary. One is just digital analytics for your site or for your mobile application. You can use something as Google Analytics, which is a phenomenal product, and it's a free product. And for small to medium-sized businesses, it will give you, once it's properly configured, it will give you everything that you need. And then you can use solutions like Google Optimize that allows you to, or Optimize that allows you to test different elements on your website. And it's very important to know that, when we talk about A/B testing, when we talk about site testing, people often think that we do that to test the color of the button, or we use testing to test headlines. Although that is what we often do, it's not really what we test. What you want to test is your assumption about your customer, right? So if I'm testing my landing page, what you're saying is, my assumption is that my customer wants this on the landing page, that they will understand this type of headline, that they will click on this type of button. And I want to test if I'm correct in my assumption or not, or if there is possibly a better subject line that will communicate to my customers, or with my customers, right? So you test your understanding of the customer needs and wants.
No, this is great, and let's continue it, because one of the big things I struggled with, I go, okay, I want to start doing it. And I took 3 years of statistics. I don't remember much from college, but I did take 3 years of it. Yeah. So I was a finance guy, math major type, and I've got all this data, and I'm going, I got to be able to see, how can I have somebody look at this? Because it's not the how. I don't want to learn how, sure. And most entrepreneurs want to know who. But who are the right people that are going to take this? They get a clear understanding of what I'm looking to do, the purpose, the platform, and actually run with it.
Yeah. So in terms of people, obviously you want somebody who has a general understanding of Google Analytics, of all of the solutions, of how to do the analysis. But one is you can easily hire people like that. The problem is a lot of times they sort of live in their data lake, right, in that data tool, and they will give you the report that says, the conversion rate on the website has increased by 2%, and the bounce rate on the website has decreased by 5%, and the abandonment on the website has increased 6%, right? So they give you the information, but you're looking at this report, and you're trying to figure out, so what? Like, what am I doing with this? So when I interview people, and I often interview people for our clients, when they're building their own teams, they invite them to interview potential hires. The one thing that I look at is curiosity, right? At the end of the day, you want people that are curious. Everything else you can teach them. But unless the person has this type of desire to understand, why is this happening? What happens if we change this? What does this mean? Why has this changed? Why do I see these types of trends, or I don't see this type of trend? This is what you want. The person who is curious, the person who has the business acumen to understand that the type of experience that you're building with your customer, right? They will be able to pick up on technology. We often do it the other way. We feel like, well, look, I need somebody who can do the number crunching for me, and they do it, but they are not equipped with actually translating the data into what we as business owners want. And that's why you need somebody who is more who is curious to connect those two sides of things. And you can hire a company that will do this for you. There are many organizations that specialize in working with small to medium-sized business, but you need to have clear oversight where you get them to report right on what they're doing, so they can provide you with their own reporting on week over week, how their type of work has translated to your bottom line, has created ROI.
Yeah, and I think starting out clearly right from the beginning is just so important with them, because I've made the mistake of hiring brilliant data scientists, but we never could use it. And then I love the curiosity. I mean, we had one group that was doing some pretty heavy analytics for us, but he was able to, stuff I wasn't asking. He was just curious. He kept on running it, mixing it with other data, and found some really, where we could locate our future clients to be able to help them through our experience. But let's go to the process. Yep. What are we talking about, Michael? What are your thoughts on processes? Because this is so important to have a process that's repeatable on this, because it's so valuable.
Sure. So the process, my key thing when I talk about processes, in every organization, it has to be, similar to using my workout analysis. Imagine if you're committed to something in your life, right? Whether it's exercising, whether it's work, whether it's reading, right? So you made a commitment and you say, look, every week I'm going to read one book, right? And you do that. So that's a process, right? That you have. And you cannot picture it any other way. Or you decide, look, every day I'm exercising, and this does not change day over day. This you don't stop. So that's what I mean. So the process in this fashion means that we have our data, right? We collect the information, we do our analysis, we document our findings, and then we test our findings. Right? So my findings can be, look, based on the analysis, I can see that. I'll walk you through the example, right? So I do the analysis, and my findings are that over the past months, I noticed that people that are going through the checkout funnel, the number of conversions has decreased by 5%. And I noticed that specifically people drop off on page X. Now, evaluating further page X, it seems like that the most number of drop-offs happen on mobile devices. And looking further, it happens on mobile devices because after we made a change to the mobile site, this is what happened on that page. And my hypothesis is that this element, or having this on my website on a mobile device, does not look quite right. Hence, less people are progressing through the checkout funnel. So my hypothesis is that we need to make the following change. You test that change, and then you see if the number of people that drop off has changed, if potentially the number of people that continue through the funnel have increased. If it has actually increased, it means, look, your hypothesis was right, so everything that you've done was right. And when I talk about processes, it means that this type of flow, this type of exercise, you're doing this information that is available to you on daily basis, on weekly basis, on monthly basis. That's what you want to get in the habit of. Not many companies run in something that, they say we have a quarterly report. They put together a quarterly report, and then they put together a plan of what they're going to change over the next quarter. Many organizations don't have the luxury to wait over the next quarter. Imagine this. Imagine if you're doing this on a quarterly basis. What you're basically saying is there is a group of people on our website that are absolutely annoyed with our website experience. And instead of fixing it, they're going to wait. They're going to make them wait for another 3 months. Imagine that what you're basically doing to your customers. You're telling them, look, I don't have a way to fix this. So I generally, actually, I don't care about your experience, and you have to suffer through this over the next 3 months. No wonder businesses go out of business, because customers just don't care, right? The customer says, well, if you're not going to fix it, I'm going to go and shop somewhere else. And thankfully, there are plenty of options.
Yeah, there are a lot of options. I mean, we do it weekly. I'm going, maybe we should do it a little more often than that. But, it's just the technology today, the ability to test this stuff with the insights and the returns is just huge. Number 5, was it tail? I didn't capture that.
So the number 5 is payoff.
Oh,
right?
payoff, okay.
Payoff, right? So payoff is, at the end of the day, right? No one is going to be investing money in analytics if I cannot, or you cannot demonstrate that all of this technologies that we buy or people that we hire, that this work does not help us generate more revenue. Yeah. So this payoff is really the measure of our activities. There is a reason why our clients pay us retainers and or hire us for large projects, is because with many of our clients, we have documented case study where we can show, look, for $1 that you are going to spend with us on analytics, we are going to increase your revenue by this much. We have case studies where we were able to increase online revenue for our clients by 100%, right? Without increasing their marketing budget. How is it possible? Well, it shows that you've just had so many inefficiencies in your process that simply by addressing some of the things that you've been ignoring and by servicing your customer better, you can generate that much more revenue.
Well, oh, go ahead. Well, and I was going to go to the last one you were going to say too, which I think you now corrected the problem and the ability to speed it up. Pace, number 6. I mean, this is where you start having exponential growth that only technology allows us to do.
Exactly right? And so pace means that I'm not going to wait until the next quarter. I am going to be using analytics on a daily basis, right? So that's what I find most successful organizations do well, is that they're able to use analytics every single day.
Yeah, Michael, we're running a little out of time, but I want to go to one area that you just wrote an article in Forbes. You're part of the Forbes Communication Council. And I'm going to pull it up. It's subscription analysis. Every business metric you must know to be successful. One of the things that's going on is more and more of the businesses are moving to a reoccurring revenue model, subscription. And it not only sounds like a great business model, the valuations are amazing. Sure. But it's a very different business, and there's a lot of data generated. And I do have a fairly significant membership group as well. And it's like I've never found something that is so good, but is a lot of work. And why don't you just comment on your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me paint a picture, if you will. Earlier this week, I was in Paris for meetings with clients. And I was walking to my hotel after a meeting, and I see a line of people on the street, right? And, immediately I think, if I did not know where this was, I happen to know that area extremely well. You would think, well, this is a line to museum, maybe this is a line to eat some world famous croissants, whatever that might be, right? But no, it's actually not. It's the line to Louis Vuitton store, right? Where people stay in line for an hour so they can go in and potentially buy a bag for $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever the product might be. So why am I telling you the story? Well, because in subscription services, one of the metrics that, in my opinion, that rules them all, if you will, is customer lifetime value, right? It's understanding how much money a customer that is a fan, right? A customer that will stay in line, the customer that is, your diehard fan is going to spend with your business over a lifetime. And this metric is very, very important. And unfortunately, I see it every day that subscription businesses don't pay enough attention to that metric. Is when they talk about acquisition, they think about this is the amount of money that I can spend to acquire somebody based on the amount of money that they can generate on the first transaction, maybe on the second transaction, not over the lifetime. So if you're running a subscription business, there are a couple of things to really focus on. One is, who is my diehard audience, right? Who are the people that I'm building this for? And once you identify those people, right, over their lifetime value, how much money can I expect to generate? And then using that lifetime value model, and there are different ways to calculate that. We can go into, if anyone has a question, I'm happy to provide to share more information. Actually did a webinar, a couple of webinars on customer lifetime value analytics. And then using that information, you start thinking, okay, how much money can I spend on acquisition, and how long will it take me to recoup that acquisition?
Yeah, it's, what I love about it is it gives you, if you can get your retention rates up, which so many of the businesses don't pay attention, which is, that maximizes the lifetime value, you can have a huge competitive advantage in advertising. And this is really, Michael, this is, I appreciate very much you coming on, because really what we're talking about, our fellow entrepreneurs, is giving them an unfair competitive advantage. Totally legal. You own the data, you have all this stuff. But so many people are saying they're doing it, but not doing it, and they're missing out on the opportunities. And, let me go I'm going to just summarize real quick. Go ahead, Michael.
No, just one last thing to say. Sorry, you said that unfair competitive advantage. So I think right now the organizations that do this well, right, they're able to generate that unfair competitive advantage. But I would say as we progress, right, simply saying, well, we are doing analytics, it's going to be just the price, to be at the table.
Yeah, it's table stakes, as in a poker game. I totally agree, and I think that's, and if you don't do it, you don't get to play. And this, we go back to the bankruptcy side. So let me do the key takeaways, because this is a really important one, and it's one that's easy to not do anything about and cause yourself huge amount of pain. So not only do you miss the opportunity, but then you don't get to be at the table anymore. And all of us want to make a huge impact. But I would encourage you, to go to, we have the video on our website, aesnation.com, and there'll be the transcript, the show notes, all the links. And Michael's company, I'm going to pull up your website, Michael. Anything on infotrust.com that they, if they want to learn more about the business, where would they go? And I'll
Sure.
hit the button for cookies now too on data.
So absolutely. Look, we have a great company culture. We've been recognized by many organizations as the best place to work. So you can read more a little bit about our culture. If you're interested in some of the resources, our resource section, our blog section has tons of free content where we've done webinars on customer lifetime value. You can see, Vaga has a lot of information. There are case studies. We often organize different webinars. So there is an endless supply of good content that talks about analytics that does that goes into a lot more detail, right? So if you found the past half an hour valuable, our website probably has 300 hours worth of content, whether it's webinars, whether it's videos, whether it's white papers, resources. So check that out. And if you're looking for more specific advice or guidance, just email me and I will point you in the right direction. I'm always, with fellow entrepreneurs, happy to hop on a call and just share some information that I've come across, obviously, after doing this for years, and just help out if I can.
Michael, I want to thank you. And again, encourage everybody to go to asnation.com. Michael, this is, a lot of your valuable time and a huge amount of insights. And I've talked with a lot of people about, data analytics. And I think you were the most succinct that I've ever, talked with. And I do want to say this is, you got the opportunity now for an unfair competitive advantage. You can see some of the major players. Nobody's going to argue that Amazon, Google, and we go on and on have an unfair competitive advantage. Okay, later on, if you're going to wait a while, it's going to be table stakes. And to be able to play, your clients, your future clients, and all your future strategic partners are counting on you. Don't let them down. We wish you the best of success.
Thank you.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. AESNation.com.